From the moment a man on death row asked only to see his dog, a flood of emotions hit the room. What followed was heartbreak, hope, and a bond that no one could forget. This story will break you. They asked him what he wanted for his final meal. The warden stood over him with a clipboard, prepared to write down steak, cake, maybe even fried chicken. That was what most people asked for. But this man, quiet for nearly 10 years, looked up slowly, his eyes empty and unreadable, and said something that made the entire room stop breathing. I just want to see my dog. At first, they thought he was joking. Death row inmates had said strange things before. But there was no laughter in his voice, no mischief, just a quiet desperation that sounded like the last thread of a life breaking. No one could remember the last time he had spoken. He never cried, never yelled, never caused trouble. He did not protest his sentence. He simply existed. In the prison system, they called him the ghost. Even the guards barely acknowledged him anymore. But now, he had spoken, and what he wanted was not food or revenge or even forgiveness. Just his dog. A dog that, according to records, did not exist. The state did not have a file on any pet associated with him. No one had visited him in years. No friends, no family, just silence. But the way he said it, his voice trembling, eyes welling, someone believed him. A guard named Evans, a gruff man who had seen too much, looked down and muttered, "We should at least try." The warden scoffed but allowed it. "You have 24 hours," he said. Then protocol resumes. No exceptions. Evans did not waste a second. He began digging through the old case files, searching for anything, anything at all, that mentioned a dog. He found a single sentence in a childhood report from over 2 decades ago. Subject exhibits deep attachment to a stray dog named Clover, found near his foster home. That was all he needed. It was the first sign of humanity he had seen in this man, and he was not going to let it die unnoticed. What they found next was not in any file. Evans had 24 hours and a name. Clover. That was it. He did not know if the dog was alive, if she had ever existed, or if this was just the broken wish of a man lost to time. But something in that voice, it haunted him. Evans called every animal shelter within 100 miles, described the man's face, his name, and the dog's. Most said they could not help. Some tried. Then, one shelter director paused. She remembered an old dog, scarred, quiet, always staring at the door, like she was waiting for someone who never came. The shelter was hours away, but Evans drove through the night. He found her in the back kennel, lying on a thin blanket. She was mostly gray now, with patches of white around her muzzle. One eye was cloudy and her ribs showed. But the moment Evans said the name, Clover, her ears twitched. Then she stood, shaky legs, eyes wide, as if her whole body remembered what her mind could not explain. When he held out a shirt that belonged to the inmate, she sniffed it and let out a long, aching sound, a sound that silenced the room. He took her. There was no time to waste. She rode in the passenger seat, head resting on his lap, trembling. Evans had seen a lot in his years on the job. Men breaking down, last-minute confessions, angry outbursts. But he had never felt what he was feeling now. This was not just a reunion. It was a reckoning. Someone had once loved this dog, and she had never stopped waiting. Back at the prison, no one believed it until they saw her. The quiet man, the ghost, heard the door open and turned. For a second, he just stared. Then his knees buckled. His lips trembled. He reached out as far as the chains would let him. And when she saw him, Clover let out a cry that did not sound like a bark. It sounded like grief, like relief, like everything she had held in for years. The room, full of guards and officials, felt completely silent. No one moved. No one spoke. No one breathed. They let her stay. No one argued. The officers who once barked orders now stood in quiet corners, pretending not to watch, pretending not to feel. But the air had changed. The man who had barely spoken in a decade was whispering now, whispering to his dog like no one else was in the room. He held her face gently in his hands, brushing her ears like he had done when they were both young. You waited for me, he said, his voice raw. All this time. You waited. She leaned into him, eyes closing, body still trembling. He stroked her fur with shaking fingers, like he was memorizing the feel of her, afraid she would disappear again. No one interrupted. Not the guards, not the warden, not the chaplain. There was no protocol for this. There were only two souls, one marked for death, one broken by time, clinging to the only thing they had left, each other. The chaplain approached and softly said they had 30 minutes. The man nodded without looking up. That is enough, he whispered. She knows I did not forget her. He paused, then added, and now, someone will remember me. Evans stood at the back, arms crossed, heart pounding. He could not explain why this mattered so much. Maybe it was the way Clover looked at the man, as if she had never once blamed him for vanishing. Maybe it was the way the man had broken, not in anger, but in gratitude. Or maybe it was just because, in all his years at this place, he had never seen anything pure last this long. The man asked for something else, just one more thing. Can she walk with me? He asked. When the time comes. The room froze again. That was not allowed. No animals passed the final gate. No exceptions. But Evans, without orders, nodded once. She walks with you, he said. To the very end. The man's eyes filled again, but this time there was peace in them. For the first time since his arrest, he smiled. Not for pity, not for show, but because the only living thing who ever saw him as human was by his side. And she was not going to let go. The hour came faster than anyone expected. The prison hallways buzzed quietly, but inside that small room, time stood still. The man held Clover close, her fur soft against his cold hands. Guards stood at the door, waiting for their orders. The warden watched silently, a rare look of solemn respect in his eyes. No one said a word as the man whispered, "Thank you for staying." Slowly, Evans unlocked the chains, and the man stood, leaning on Clover for support. They walked together down the cold, grey corridor. The dog limped beside him, her tail wagging faintly, as if she sensed the importance of the moment. Other prisoners watched silently from behind bars, some wiping tears from their eyes. When they reached the final gate, Evans stepped forward and hesitated. This was where the rules ended, but he remembered the man's words and saw the peace in his eyes. Without another word, he opened the gate. Clover stepped forward, staying close to her owner's side. The man looked down at her and smiled, a smile filled with gratitude and sorrow. "You are my best friend," he said softly. "You never gave up on me." He knelt and kissed her head, then took a deep breath and walked through the gate, knowing this was his last walk. Back in the room, the dog waited. She stayed by the door, tail still wagging, eyes fixed on the way he had gone. The warden turned away. The chaplain bowed his head, and the guards wiped their eyes. What started as a simple request had become a lesson in love, loyalty, and forgiveness. And in that moment, everyone understood. Even in the darkest places, hope can live. And sometimes it comes on four paws,